ecosystem, if we, humankind, are kept healthy, all of us, now the over 7 billion of us somehow, we do have the resources, then our whole planet will sustain to be healthy. Well, the main objective of Rio was to secure a renewed political commitment for sustainable development. This was not achieved. Preparations took over 2 years. A wish list was collected from anybody, everybody could submit proposals. It was incorporated into several thousand pages documents which were all the time reduced, edited, many conferences, meetings whatsoever. The efforts were really there to see what people want. Now, what are really the top 10 global environmental ecological priorities of our world? Just to summarize, they were not put forward, not all of them, at the Rio summit. Deforestation, of course. We had good initiatives through the carbon trading mechanisms, for example, to protect forests, since they are net carbon absorbers. However, still the deforestation measure is enormous, and there are some predictions that by 2050 we will have hardly any rainforest left. Overpopulation. We have talked about, you have seen many of the charts of human development index related to ecological footprint. We are already in an overshoot. We consume more of our ecological asset, biocapacity, than it can renew. We have endangered species, and I'm sorry, I've put in the future generations as well, the human future generations, since it's obvious that under these ecological environmental processes that are underway, the living standards, conditions will not be the same for them as for the people today. This polar bear drawing is that's mine, I made it. Well, if we are better off, nearly everything else that lives on the planet is not. That's a problem. It was written in Time magazine. Climate change. We know, unfortunately, that much for the polar bear and many other species. If the white cap, snow cap disappears, the black color will absorb even more heat, accelerating the greenhouse gas effect, and so forth, and so forth. Many countries are just waiting for this ice cap to disappear so that they can jump on and bore new oil drilling stations for fossil fuel extraction. World hunger. Yes, over 1 billion of us, different estimates, face hunger every single day. There has been a lot of progress in that respect. However, on absolute terms, because the population is increasing, the number of hungry people is increasing. We have water scarcity for climate change reasons that results in desertification, because of water pollution, the glaciers melting in the ocean, becoming salty water. The whole water household circulation of our planet has significantly changed. This is an important chart to show how vulnerable the planet's water is. Only 2.5% of our total waters is fresh water. of which we can have access only to 0.4%, which means that we have access of total water only of the 1% of the total waters on Earth. Here you see this on that chart. And now if we look at the waters that we have access in rivers, lakes and groundwater, how that's used for power, communal, industrial purposes, how much evaporates, and you see for agriculture. And clearly our agricultural patterns for food security for all patterns are not sustainable for irrigation and many ways. And then if we see the consumptive use of the extracted water, it's even worse because agriculture is consuming 93% of that. And the water scarcity will increase. Today there are already over 100 countries where access to clean water is a big problem. We have the huge problem to fight with, and many UN agencies, especially UNDP, all of them one way or another, it's in the MDGs, are trying everything to alleviate poverty. On the other hand, you see in the picture, I put that on purpose, other people are struggling with what to do with their money, and they have such castles, not only one but several, and their goal is how to maximize their profit, wealth and power endlessly, while the majority of really over 1/10 of the population is struggling with poverty. Okay, renewable energy. This is related to access to energy, energy efficiency increase, demand side management introduction everywhere, and we do have in our planet sufficient renewable energy. 1 hour of solar power, if we could catch that and use it for humankind, would be enough for a whole year of our energy consumption. And as Balázs mentioned, the technology is developing so quickly, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper, and you see like the countries which don't really have much sunshine, like Germany, is heavily loaded with solar panels. Here we can use 2 types of solar energy, the thermal, which is creating hot water, and that can help even in winter time because there is anti-freeze liquid in it, and the other is the photovoltaic producing electricity. We have a huge problem with oceans, and you can check on internet, or you know yourself already, even the Pacific Ocean is dead. They face toxics, and climate change is killing coral reefs. Not long ago, even New York's waste was dumped every day into the ocean. In big cities in Asia, this is still the practice. And we can also talk about the biggest polluters, the military industry actually, who are not even controlled or monitored what they do to the oceans and everywhere. Air pollution, silent, invisible killer. According to World Health Organization, over 1.3 million people die from outdoor air pollution each year. We can continue this list, of course, with cultural heritage conservation, rights to indigenous people, change in land use, land degradation. I'd like to call your attention to a very important issue that politicians, many people tend to forget: the fertile soil, the top level of soil. If that disappears because of land degradation, climate change, hurricane, whatsoever, landslide, there's no point to water that soil anymore because it's not fertile. Well, all these global environmental and social issues are interrelated. You had presentation how much poverty and environment disasters are linked. The problem is that the side effects of each of these global environmental issues is having such an impact on the other ones that overall they are deteriorating, and we end up in domino effect and chain reactions. We must mention here the problem of the tragedy of the commons that sort of doesn't belong to the ownership of anyone, and that's like oceans or the ozone layer or the stratosphere or biodiversity or the air itself and whatsoever. So it was expected actually from the Rio+20 summit to take measures and introduce conventions how to deal with the tragedy of the commons problem, which is so important for the biocapacities that sustain our life. Clearly we need U-turn in many of these processes, but unfortunately that's not the case. Then finally 7 priority areas were put forward: green jobs, energy efficiency and sustainability, food security, sound water management, sustainable cities, sustainable management of the oceans, and improved resilience and disaster preparedness. Now we have no time. Maybe here the principle 10 is important, the right to access to information, participation and justice, or the introduction of ombudsman for future generations everywhere overall spreading. The World Bank has put strongly 6 major issues that they deal with: inclusive green goals, and here there's some difference what is green industry, green growth, and inclusive green growth. That inclusive means that how to internalize the whole of the society, that how the green growth includes social inclusion of poor and disadvantaged whatsoever. To introduce natural capital accounting, which is a step forward footprint, ecological footprint accounting. Cityscapes, landscapes, oceans, and sustainable energy. Well, we have no time for this. If you have any questions later on, then we can get into this. The final text, which was reduced out of the 200 summary pages that were put forward at Rio, the final text we discussed of less than 50 pages, starts with this fantastic: we recognize that the planet Earth and its ecosystems are our home, and that Mother Earth is a common expression in a number of countries and regions, and we note that some countries recognize the rights of nature in the context of the promotion of sustainable development. We are convinced that in order to achieve a just balance among the economic, social, and environment needs of present and future generations, so strong sustainability, it is necessary to promote harmony with nature. The real question is how? It's a great goal. How? Very important to find ways and make it mandatory to complement GDP. GDP really measures the financial flows. What we really want to see that what is the real output? How does the GDP affect environmental, natural, ecological degradation, for example? So it was proposed, and many countries will now introduce, and actually the European Union accepted it, that the GDP will be complemented by ecological footprint calculation, as so-called global hectare of it is a new currency. Well, very good care was taken that all stakeholder groups are participating in the process of preparing the summit, and really a lot of people attended. Over 50,000 people attended finally. There were thematic days, signed events. Usually these are the most useful ones. But unfortunately, the key politicians, decision makers were not there, as we discussed before, because the future generations are not their voters. But nearly 100 heads of state were there, and there were huge debates on issues that, for example, the G77 developing countries cannot agree with the G20, who is responsible for the pollution, who has the means to really take measures to save our planet. There were many reactions and critics. For example, at the end, WWF said less than satisfactory outcome, or the UNEP reported that the world remains on an unsustainable path. We have seen this by 2050, if we continue like this, for sure we need minimum 2 planets of Earth to sustain us. Well, again, the chart that you have seen before, it's a summary of all the major global environmental issues. Also important, the biogeochemical flow for food security and agriculture, which was not mentioned before. A critic was about the Rio summit preparation, that it was not based on our planetary boundaries. The UNEP noted that 2 biggest issues, the death of coral reefs, very important for the ecosystem of oceans. It's interesting to know that science knows less about oceans than about space research. We know more about our universe than about our own oceans. And we haven't identified the majority of species yet which are in the oceans and are vital to our living. The other is the absolute unsustainable consumption, which I really call that we are still into the waste production economy and waste consumerism, and that has to, it needs a U-turn. Well, outcome, many critics, that perhaps the greatest failure of collective leadership since the First World War. And so what next if the summit ended up like that? Not in a chaos like Copenhagen, but still what was expected, that after the MDGs, new goals and milestones and indicators would be set. It hasn't happened. What was positive, that all countries are UNEP members, the adoption of a 10-year framework for sustainable consumption and production, let's see, the importance of green economy, and the European Environmental Agency, so-called Eye on Earth, was well recognized, or that Europe accepted ecological footprint to complement GDP. And there is clearly somewhat willingness to move on the right path. There are many controversial issues. If you have questions, we can get into them. We have no time at the moment. The State of the Planet Declaration, which was a major conference in London in March of over 3,000 scientists coming together, put down a declaration, sent it to General Secretary Ban Ki-moon, who well received it, and in spite of that it wasn't discussed and recognized at the summit. It's clear that Rio should lead. Now there's a lot of work that has to start on practical work on this 49 pages agreement. So basically we just have pushed forward the real issues and how to set the right goals and deal with our problems. Summary of which deadlines to meet, how work will be organized. Clearly, we need a system change of paradigm in many levels. We don't want climate change, we want a system change for sustainability. We want sustainable prosperity for everybody on Earth. Well, urbanization for several reasons is accelerating and is so heavy. Already the majority of world population are living in urban areas, and with migration, climate change, better work opportunities, income opportunities in urban areas, it will accelerate even more. So we do need solutions for sustainable cities, and the concept of smart cities, or this ecological cities as economic cities, has come up. For obvious reasons, badly needed. We don't want to see slums all over. And if you look at the major cities of the world, having, I don't know, over 20 million people, the number of people who are commuting to that city every single day is often 1/4, 1/3 whatsoever of the population of the city. Some people, like in India, they move in every Monday and go back for the weekend, and they actually live throughout the whole week in their little car, which is rented or shared. This is the proposal. You see Emirates people over there. Obviously, for these Eco 2 cities, you do need money. There are always some actions, prompt, immediate actions that don't need major investments, and every single city, a little bit slowly, step by step, with proper strategies, can be transformed into a more sustainable city. However, here Masdar was designed in a way, as I said, to be fully Eco 2. I was recently on a study trip in Singapore. I have amazing experiences. If we can have some time, a side event or some talk, and you are interested, I'm happy to reply your questions. Smart cities are less strong for sustainability than the Eco 2 cities, and they have these 6 main dimensions, and rather concentrating on infrastructure, transport, development issues, and mobility. The Eco 2 cities, and here you see the nice picture of recreation in Asia. Probably the ocean. Ocean will be.
It's a beach in Busan.
Yeah. So Ecological Cities, Economic Cities, Sustainable Urban Development Initiative that was launched by the World Bank in 2009, and from Vietnam to many countries where the World Bank is active, they are trying to push and provide also the investment funds that are needed to develop such a city. It's important to build on existing structures and synergies. Here is a chart how the principles of an Eco2 city works. You will have this presentation and get into this in detail. Each of these elements have scope and stepping stones, so it's elaborated in very detail. Very important, as in all of these strategic making, planning processes or developing a project whatsoever, that we are in an iterative dialogue at many levels, top, bottom, top, develop again, disseminate information, involve everybody who is at stake. And for these Eco2 cities, there are many workshops that common vision and urban planning results are developed, building consensus. Here is an example for that in some countries the way to develop such a city, they set up a national fund for financing such activities and investments. A lot can be done outside the Rio Agreement. Please read it. You can have questions later on if we have time. Will there be Rio+30 and Rio+40? I'm sure there will be, because our problems will become even greater to deal with, and it will be needed to do something. But for example, quoting Greenpeace, we don't have 20 years or even 10 to deal with the burning problems. Here are references, please look at them. And this is an introduction slide to ecological footprint, that how much was the carbon footprint of the Rio+20 summit. And this, I made an estimate through extrapolating, and based on calculation tools that I had access to. And this is only for the summit, so this doesn't include the 2 years preparation process. And so a rough estimate is that it's incremented about 200,000 tons of CO2. There were many proposals to have video conferences or whatsoever, or why people for such an obvious issue have to be physically together, but Rio is a nice place also for holidays. This was about Rio and introduction into the ecological footprint. Shall we get into it and have discussions, or do you have any questions to this right now?
Thank you, Krisztina.
Short, if possible, because we have no time, I'm sorry.
I have two questions. First of all, regarding the environment, I would like to say whether there is identified which country is the best to have, which country has the best environment in the world. Is it identified or no? And the second question that you mentioned about Singapore, I have information that Singapore is known to have lowest corruption there, and I would like to know your opinion regarding the situation there regarding environment.
These are big questions. Number one, there is no such that best, because I'm an engineer originally. There is only, you can only optimalize, which means that you look several aspects, what are the best and what's the optimum. if we look at that, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Costa Rica are clearly the best performers for environment protection and nature conservation. Then Singapore. It has the third highest GDP per capita. It's a fantastic example, the quickest ever development of humankind history that took place since its independence from 1965. A very well governed, very conscious government, polluter pay principle, user pay principle, fully implemented. Yes, very low corruption. However, because of incentives, they are very much exposed to money laundering, for example, because there is no bank on earth, which means something that doesn't have a tower building in Singapore. They are very aggressively enforcing their legislation and regulation. The minimum fine there is $500 if you throw a piece of handkerchief on the street. So it's so much in order, you can eat from the street. But downtown you see military people with huge machine guns walking around, so that you know you have to behave. It's fantastic, the attitude of the people. They are very relaxed, very patient, everything is orderly. I loved if you ask something or need help, they really listen to you, and first they clearly want to understand what you ask, and they take 10 minutes, whatever is needed out of their own time, really to help you. There is strong solidarity, and because they are such a rich country, they do have an amazing social net. So people are so relaxed because they don't have to be afraid if they lose their job. There's a very strong social net. Many basic services for the people are free of charge. There are the biggest developments, this Marina Bay complex. However, it's a city-state. It's small, dense. Even its national parks are sort of artificial, and you find everything very artificial and synthetic in it. So it's a little bit frightening that our whole world at the end, with population growth, will have to be so synthetic and artificial. I made photos in restaurants, that family sitting and eating, and they don't talk to each other. All of them have their iPhone, iPad, whatever, and they just... Yes?
After what you told about Rio+20, I have a kind of provocative question. Do you think we really need economic growth? And probably we just need greater redistribution, and we basically can live without this overarching aim of reaching more and more, but just sustaining some production, okay, and trying to be and trying to reach greater distribution. But this preoccupation with economic growth, I think, will lead to the same problems. It will be like vicious circle.
Absolutely, and we will come to that in the ecological footprint exercise. That we are for unlimited growth when we have limited resources. It's nonsense. Absolutely. So what type of growth? What is growth? What is really sustainable for all? Clearly we need a better redistribution mechanism and a more fair system that really who are polluting, like I don't know if for example BP, they should really pay for it, or change the transport costs and internalize the externalities into the transport costs, like all the environmental damages caused by the oil companies. Immediately it will not be worthwhile to carry commodities all over the world to and fro, because the transport would be so expensive. So there are, what really the solution could be that if ecological economics could be implemented at every level of our economy, and the so-called subsidies, for example, for renewable energy, would not be considered as subsidies, but a payment for a future benefit. These are just examples. We don't really have time to discuss the whole, but thank you, it's a very good question. So why we have to calculate the ecological footprint? Well, here is the first question replies to you. How infinite growth with limited resources? It's impossible. Water, we talked about the scarcity of our resource. How to account for this? The trade I mentioned, versus, it's not only because of the local communities and local productions through the loading of products of developed countries everywhere is subsidized through this cheap transport. But also the transport has horrifying impact on ozone layer, climate change, whatsoever. This fossil fuel-based energy consumption through globalization, and then the needs of fossil fuels, then the use of more biofuels, which takes land and resources from agricultural production for feeding people. So the world is already at overshoot. Currently, we need about 1.5 planets, considering the recovery, renewability ability of nature. We discussed a debt to nature is unforgiven, is not reversible. The ecological footprint is a measurement to see what demand human activity puts on the biosphere. It develops an area that can be compared with the biological capacity, the biocapacity. Land and water area is scaled according to its biological productivity, and at the end we come to the currency, a global hectare, that represents a hectare with world average productivity. Mr. Wackenhagel said, we live on an amazing planet with fantastic ecological wealth, yet most decision makers don't see this wealth. We take it for granted, and as an unintended, unconscious consequence, we are liquidating it, and with it, ourselves too. Possibly the biggest policy failure, far beyond any other market failure. In the Rio+20 summit, Mr. Wackenhagel with a colleague received a Blue Planet Prize. So he is very well recognized by now by the world. His office, this Global Footprint Network that he's the president of, is in California. So, how this ecological footprint is put together: forest land, grazing land, urban land, fishing land, cropland, and the carbon footprint, just the major ones that we humans consume one way or another and have impact on. It's an extremely complicated method of the calculation. I'm not an expert in it. There are tools that anyone can use. It's all the time developing, evolving, so they are making the methodology and the calculation more and more precise, continuously, all the time. Of course, it's not an absolute objective measure, but what is an objective measure? GDP is much less of an objective measure. So humanity's ecological footprint, you see over time what's the one Earth capacity, and from 1960 to 2050 how oh no, this is not, this is only by today, only by 2005. Today we need 1.5 planets. Again, Mr. Wackenham is very, very concerned about this tragedy of the commons, that they shrink, and being shared, they continue to shrink and being polluted, degraded. Is it a political suicide? Or do we have any other choice? Because politicians think very short term, so, and they are afraid if they bring measures that have a good impact on the long run, they are committing a political suicide and they might not be voted on. But I think the number of voters will increase who do have concerns for their own children and grandchildren, and so the political arena will change. So which are the countries in the world, it's in 1961, that are ecological creditors or debtors? It's here that they used the geographic boundaries of 2005 so that it's comparable. You see, we had that time more countries were creditors, which means that they consumed less than what their biocapacity is. Then what's the situation by 2005? And I think if we look at 7 years later today, the situation is even worse. You see the red parts are the debtors, and already in 2005, pardon me, 80% of the world's population were living already in countries which are ecological debtors. So the question is that IPCC together with Al Gore, you remember in 2007 they got Nobel Prize, and Al Gore Oscars, many Oscars for his movie because he so well presented the human contribution to climate change. And they said that we must not increase the average temperature more than 2%. However, that's not the case, and if we continue the current scenario, the increase by 2100 will be 5%, which will have enormous impact on water level increases all over the world. Now let's take a human life. If somebody was born in 1962, and what's the biocapacity and the ecological footprint? Later on, probably the person lives over 80 years. So the ecological depth, the gap is just increasing. It's a very important chart, and I kindly ask you that later on look into it more deeply, because here are a few products or activities calculated what is their lifetime, the lifespan, because what's the footprint of a car, considering that its average lifespan in the US is 9 years. Or very important for nuclear power. Many people think that now the energy problem of the world can be resolved through nuclear power plants. Actually, it's extremely risky in many ways, and usually they are planned for 40 years, and there are hardly any countries where the real costs of nuclear energy are included in the prices. I mean the demolition, rehabilitation, what to do with nuclear waste, long-term impact whatsoever. We have to multiply the footprint of products that we produce today, or really products that become waste because of fashion or consumerism, addiction to buy and purchase, with the lifetime of that product and how Mother Earth can deal with it. Is it degradable or not? We are in an overshoot, and clearly we need measures to turn around these processes, because you see the different types of footprints, the colors represent the different types. By 2060 we will get into an enormous ecological debt and consume all our reserves, even the reserves. Here are some examples how over time countries like Uganda have crossed the line of their ecological footprint compared to what biocapacity they have, or Iran. And you see Switzerland, which always consume much more than what biocapacity they have, although they have very strict measures on environment protection whatsoever. An example, and there are several examples now for countries in Africa, and the different countries represent which are debtors or creditors. The blue shaded were where they have assets that allow them to have a net import of biocapacity and to burn significant quantities of fossil fuel. And the yellow ones, their development is limited by their declining biocapacity, leading to severe conflicts. So another reason why this ecological footprint calculation is good, because it's looking at the global aspect of exporting, importing the resources of biocapacity. So we have shrinking ecological credit, reducing biocapacity, the ecological footprint of humankind is increasing, which is increasing instability, economic, ecological, environmental, and social. How to reduce your ecological footprint? We will do some exercises. I developed a collection of methodologies and ways to reduce. It's available to you. We will do a quiz exercise. It's only about 10 minutes. Then we see what your footprint is. Then we compare it with the country average of your specific country. We'll do it as we can, or maybe together we don't have enough computers. And I'd like to see some examples, interactive sites for the tools, how we can reduce our footprint. UNEP has such, the European Union, Canada, you find many such tools. It's important to understand that I know we as individuals have little impact. The real impact would be if, for example, in Rio they could have taken very severe measures to to slow down this degradation and make a U-turn. That depends on politicians, decision makers, obviously those who have the means. If a poor family in Africa, obviously they are happy to survive or keep their children alive. They don't have the means really to reduce the footprint. And I'm telling you this because when we do the exercise and it's about you, please let's not get into it that, oh, but how can I if the biggest polluters and whatsoever. So we are 7 billion, we can make very little changes to our life, attitude to use of energy whatsoever. In our climate here in Hungary, for example, only through attitude changes, we can, without any investment, without any money, we can reduce our energy consumption by 14% on average. So it's enormous what we can do if we lead a different lifestyle. And we have to prioritize always. Whatever we do, we always do little benefit cost analysis when we take a decision. So one limiting aspect, and the world is very fair in only one aspect, that all of us have only 24 hours. I realize myself, although I really try to be environmental conscious, that I have no time to switch off the standby. Often I don't switch off my computer. Often I don't do things because I'm rushing. We are really squeezed into a circle of quicker and quicker and quicker and work more and more and more and in the extremes. And that's why we do have limits what we can do, but it's up to us how we prioritize what we can do for reducing our footprint. Now, here is a table comparing different countries and young people and different habits they have, what they eat, how they handle waste, what type of appliances they have, what house they live in, how many people live in that house, how do they commute or what type of transportation they use, and then calculate with that type of lifestyle in that climate how many planets would they need if everybody lived at that level. Well, you see the top in the rank is the person in the US who eats made daily eggs, most meals, has no efficient appliances, lives in a big house sharing it with only 4 people, drives 5 miles per day and flies the plane very often, while ones are who need only one planet, who, let's see, the person in India who is a vegetarian, lives in a very small cottage with no electricity and is walking. Obviously the person is poor and has very little opportunities for reducing the footprint, but the footprint of the poor is usually very low. We'll get into the means how we can impact reduction of ecological footprint. Now it's another chart looking only at the UK and different people. This option 1, these are different lifestyles. Actually, here are 18 options that I looked at. The average UK is 2.65 planets would be needed if everybody on Earth would live at UK living standards. And you see that the overshoot is enormous. In certain cases, people need 9 planets. If they are heavy car users, they take holidays which are far away with plane, who live alone. Their heat and cool energy bills are high. They have access to electricity from non-renewable resource. They don't try to conserve because they are rich, so they don't care. and they are regular meat eaters, and they eat mostly convenience foods and not own cooked and bioproduct, or don't have a garden for food production. They waste above the average, and they don't really recycle. While here, with different lifestyles, the planet needed can be reduced even to 1.3 in the UK. For people who choose local holidays, they live in a flat, share with a lot of people, conserve, have renewable energy, recycle, eat fresh, locally grown food, not which are imported, transported, and available in big supermarkets. And they produce much less waste and recycle everything. Now there are some facts about footprint for water use that just with attitude.
Maybe we show after the calculation. So
okay, so
because this is supposed to be part of the exercise. Initially we wanted to have this as
okay, then,
group work. Who of you have computers with you? Great. Now you have one of the rare moments to use the computers during the sessions. The idea is log in, go to the site which Krisztina shows you, calculate quickly your footprint individually, and then we will discuss the possible options, how different lifestyles affect the overall result. The idea behind this is very simple. I don't quite agree with Krisztina that only politicians can do what needs to be done, and it was failure in Rio+20. Yes, it was to a certain extent failure, but the politicians are responsive individuals. They follow the instincts of the voters. So we have a huge space to influence this from bottom up, and I think this is one of the few real democratic opportunities. Starting from us and promoting the message of the need, that it first needs to be done something, and second, there can be done something. So that is exactly the reason, just for you to understand, because we can go on and on with lecturing, with theory about this and that, how ecological footprint is measured, and so on. But the bigger issue is for you to think in your individual cases what you can do in your everyday life, and is there any slot, any space in which you can still meet a certain compromise. Decreasing the consumption or changing the consumption pattern so that you don't lose too much in terms of your convenience, but on the other hand, decreasing the implications for the planet. So now, it's very quick, I think it's 5 minutes, we don't need more than that.
Can you please come back to the reference website?
You can open that email that I sent you with the quiz on ecological footprint, the link is there.
Yes.
It's www.myfootprint.org. Actually, Andrea referred to this issue because we talked with some of the classmates before that they have this problem that there are the big polluters, multinational companies. Of course, we all have an impact, and we all should do what we can, and this is about this, but we also, part of this exercise is to see how we can exercise pressure on the multinationals through the different consumption patterns, what we buy.
Yes.
Just a technical question, which of the country of origin or the country where we currently live?
Your own country where you live? Yes, where you live.
Okay, thank you.
So do you have the site? It's
Here it is. I wrote it on the board.
and now we go into the English, and first you can select your country. You don't have to enter here your email address. The quiz is working even without that. So just go on to the next page. I have to take on it, but you can reduce your energy by half. It depends on which climate, but climate which hot weather, usually the consumption of energy is much higher than in the winter because of the air conditioning and the ice. For example, wide open ice, drink everything with ice. Drink less coffee. Because you have to cut rainforest all the time. Coffee. And what I'd like to tell also that for
Sorry, what is heating oil?
Sorry, heating oil?
Okay.
Hi, nice to see you.
electricity was venni biomass, venni
solar. Itt Magyarországon, hát 15%. Mert van zöldállája Magyarországon, de nagyon kevés, tenyérben 10%.
Mert a elfogyamaikat oda beírta, az 0,87 Magyarország, igen.
Hát az azt jelenti, hogy hát az igen, de már az egyből nagyobb. Hogyha százalékba kell megadni, akkor ez 10%.
Guys, there are a lot of estimates which we usually don't think detailed terms, but we're not discussing. For example, air travel. Just estimate roughly destinations which you travel per year and the distances. From Northern Europe to Southern Europe is roughly 2,000 kilometers, between 1.5 and 2,000. Central Asia to Europe is roughly 3,000. If you go to the US, it's roughly 4.5. Multiply by times. Sorry?
No, wrong.
Wait. And in terms of commuting, if you live in a city and commute every day by, for example, rail or something, this is between 5 and 10 kilometers per day, at least. So, on a weekly basis, 5 by 10 to 15 kilometers. On a monthly basis, it's roughly 200. So, don't be that precise, but a rough estimate is Actually, you don't need to do this for each individual. Very well, you're working in the groups. The idea is to illustrate the possible differences and options and
And you can take your recent average, because many of you have to come here with a plane and you have no choice, obviously. So take a recent average of what you are accustomed to.
So what should we do now?
If you finish and you push, it will come up with a number that how many planets.
And what will we do with this number?
You know the number. You know that number. And then we look at the country average. For example, what's the average for Lebanon, and we see that how you compare to your country's average. But she's traveling a lot with plane.
Yes.
And she has no choice. So the problem is that many times, so what are really our choices, what are not?
But for example, here, what the best description
We have here less than 1 planet.
you most drive often
Less than what?
I live alone in like small 0.7 apartment. Basically, I drive, but I have no choice to use this.
How can we save that?
The bill.
Yeah, I don't have a car. I like to buy only in winter, but I drive less. I need to go to my work by sometimes it was long distance.
I understand. But it's maybe it's down there. I don't want to take it, but it's not a complete there are many other which have so take your
Yeah, well, my
that
brother
which is a hybrid, okay?
Okay, so far I'm not
Dina, your country average is 1.6 planets. 6 is your country average. And try to do your exercise and you change the plate lines, for example. Because that's because of the special. And see that what's the outcome if we take Please note the result and then we can collect them here and we can see what's the country average.
Okay, are we ready? No. 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes.
So obviously you see that countries which are under a climate which don't need that much energy like Lebanon, they need only on average 1.6 planets.
But if you're a international consultant flying business class, on average all times in one world, in the US it sometimes happens, then you will choose 20 plus planets. Luckily there's
But it doesn't depend on me. I know I have that like I think it's because it's
Simplified squeeze, of course. Please, it's only an estimate. It's a very simplified questionnaire. There are, of course, much more elaborated ones. So, please try to finish. It's there under Please note your results and then go to that website footprintnetwork.org footprintnetwork.org. Here you can find
okay, the purpose of this, so now you have an idea. Some of them, so some of those items, of course, they are very vague because it is very much individual based. But if you run this several times and look at this from different options, you can play with this calculators and see actually how the result would change when you choose different, for example, strategies in terms of water use or different strategies in terms of sources of your food. Well, let's not go that too far and change entirely your working habits. I mean, don't say we all should become vegans, although it would help. But still, the sources of food, locally produced or imported and transported, it already matters. And as you see, of course, it is largely designed to show you the philosophy, the logic of it. Each individual, if you start thinking deeper in this regard, you can do your own, actually develop your own calculator so that you monitor your footprint more carefully. The idea behind this also very appealing because when you start thinking in those ways, you can always actually think what you can do in your everyday life. And it really changes the data, and it's helpful. Now, before we go for the coffee break, Krisztina will quickly show you some possible approaches, just simple tips which can help you in that regard, exactly using the footprint.
However,
beyond the obvious that let's try to reduce and cancel the transatlantic flights on business.
the footprintnetwork.org site, you can find your country's average footprint and you can compare. So we have no time to look at that, but here footprintnetwork.org, and then you go to countries, select your country, and you will see the average of your country. However, we have no time for that at the moment, so we see an interactive site for the water, Canada. Okay, here you have a house, and you have inside, outside the house, you have to irrigate, you are rich, you have a pool, so what are the tips, water tips? In summer, the lawn watering and other outdoor uses can account for about 50% of home water use. And studies show that as much as half of this outdoor use is wasteful. As a general rule, 2-3 centimeters of water per week is adequate. If you go on the bubbles, here I suggest you to go through this exercise, it's big fun. So add 2-4 inches of organic material, fertile soil, helps actually to reduce your water use. Or you use sprinkles for the watering in the garden. Now, we have no time, so let's see what's inside the house. Water tips for your bathroom. The bathroom accounts for about 65% of the water use inside your home. The different for the shower, for the wash basin. So turn the tap off while you're brushing your teeth or shaving or washing your face whatsoever. That's quite obvious, but for lack of time or hurry, we don't do that. Shower. Take a short shower or reduce the flow of the water of the shower. Install a low flow shower head, was mentioned. Install a toilet which is water efficient. Okay. And we can continue.
Use it as a fishbowl.
You get this collection of materials. You will find it site and you can play with it yourself. So let's see now a chart on how to. Where can I get back to the documents? No. This poster is important. So it's water footprint of different products, and you see how much water you need. Every single drop here, these are drops, means 50 liter. 50-liter water means about a bathtub for sitting. A smaller bathtub would fill 50 liters, so quite a lot. And you see the production of a kilo of beef requires 2,300 liters of water for quite obvious reasons. Or the burger, 1,250 liters of water. Different vegetarian products like barley, wheat, on the other hand, much less. But coffee requires a lot of water. Cheese, again. Milk, again. Toast whatsoever. We can continue this list. Now the how. The chart I showed before.
Sorry?
There was
Just a small remark. I think it's a good idea to share the results of this small quiz of how what's your footprint in Facebook, because there is about some sort probably your friends in Facebook couldn't follow it.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Very good idea. Actually, we have now already this electronic diaries. Just submit your results in this daily notes, and
What do you think about that?
our purpose of this exercise was for you to start thinking in those terms. So don't stop with this exercise before the, I wouldn't say coffee, before the tea break, because now we're shifting to the low water habits. So no coffee breaks anymore.
So we should shift to espresso, right? We should shift to espresso because it takes smaller amount of coffee.
But the problem is the production of the coffee bean itself.
This is the last slide, the last screen before we go for the tea break.
This is just to show you, you will get this, another calculator which is in a table, and you can see more precisely in a quantitative manner that how many points you get, so how you increase your footprint or reduce your footprint by having different habits for shower, for example, whether it's no or short or long, more than once a day, how you flush your toilet, so in water then.
Actually, Actually, this is a good example of how you should go a little bit more in depth on this. Because in order to be precise, no shower, no bath, actually is not a zero way to use. I'm serious. Because with no shower, no bath, you have additional elements like deodorants and all this. So if you take into consideration this, so I'm not joking. This is already more complicated.
I have a note.
It's endlessly complicated. There are endless ways to reduce your footprint. And what is really a big benefit that usually you also save money. At least, okay, bioproducts usually are more expensive at the moment, but you preserve your health. So in the long run, it's saving, even if you invest.
I have a proposal for Hungary regarding bioproduct. I'm sorry to say for Hungary because last year I've been living in Hungary 3 years and I have the habit to read what I eat. But in Hungary everything is written in Hungarian. So if you include at least one foreign language, it would be much of help of tourists and people and coming students.
That's not the case for every product in Hungary, but there are EU regulations by now. But the problem is with bioproducts that usually you can buy in biomarket and not in.
No, I mean for example, you are living too close to a central market and you are buying products including fish and meat out there. But if you go to supermarket when the market is closed or you need something urgently, all the etiquettes are nearly only in Hungarian. I think in 3 months I found maybe 2 products that they had English. It was, oh, what a discovery.
Yeah.
So
there is room for improvement in many ways, even in that. Yes.
Okay. So I see you decided to reduce coffee consumption by eating out your drink.
Let's go for a break. So you will have those links.
You see food use, energy use, clothing. And I'd like to tell you something, a very important example. I have at home a former East German made kitchen robot, which is today 43 years old. And it's still working and has no problem and knows exactly the same as the current kitchen robots, what you buy, and there you have a choice of enormous. The appliances are broken down in 3 years for sure, because the designers are thinking about how they can make sure that you have to buy a new one after 3 years. So this is what I tell you, waste production society and consumerism, and with different consumer patterns. Really look at before you buy something. Think twice, do I really need it? Thank you very much.
Thank you.